Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Rama Hare Rama Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Astottres Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. So today we'll be reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, text 54. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll read. I hope everyone has access to the
What verse is it?
1154. Yes, 501. Yes. Bhaktyatvi ananya sakya aham evam vido arjuna jnatum drashtum na tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa bhaktyatvi ananya sakha aham evam vido arjuna Gyatum drashtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa bhaktyatvi ananya sakya aham evam vido arjuna Gyatum drashtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. Translation. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way you can enter into the mysteries of my understanding. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna can be understood only by the process of undivided devotional service. He explicitly explains this in this verse so that unauthorized commentators who try to understand Bhagavad Gita from the speculative process will know that they are simply wasting their time. No one can understand Krishna or how he came from parents in a four-handed form and at once change himself into a two-handed form. These things are very difficult to understand by the study of the Vedas or by philosophical speculation. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that no one can see him or enter into understandings of these matters. Those who, however, are very experienced students of Vedic literature can learn from him from the Vedic literature in so many ways. There are so many rules and regulations, and if one at all wants to understand Krishna, he must follow the regulative principles described in the authoritative literature. One can perform penance in accordance with those principles. For example, to undergo serious penances, one may observe fasting on Janmashtami, the day on which Krishna appeared, and on the 2 days of Ekadasi, the 11th day after the new moon and the 11th day after the full moon. As far as charity is concerned, it is plain that charity should be given to the devotees of Krishna who are engaged in his devotional service to spread the Krishna philosophy or Krishna consciousness throughout the world. Krishna consciousness is a benediction to humanity. Lord Chaitanya was appreciated by Rupa Goswami as the most munificent man of charity because love of Krishna, which is very difficult to achieve, was distributed freely by him. So if one gives some amount of his money to persons involved in distributing the Krishna consciousness, that charity given to spread Krishna consciousness is the greatest charity in the world. And if one worships as prescribed in the temple, in temples in India there is always some statue, usually of Vishnu or Krishna. That is a chance to progress by offering worship and respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the beginners in devotional service to the Lord, temple worship is essential, and this is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Sveteshwara Upanishad 6.23. Yasya deve parabhaktir yata devet hata gurau tasyaite khatita hi artha praksante mahatmanah. One who has unflinching devotion for the Supreme Lord and is directed by the spiritual master, in whom he has similar unflinching faith, can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead by revelation. No one can understand Krishna by mental speculation. For one who does not take personal training under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, it is impossible to even begin to understand Krishna. The word tu specifically used here to indicate that no other process can be used, can be recommended, or can be successful in understanding Krishna. The personal forms of Krishna, the two-handed form and the four-handed form, are described as Sudurdarsanam, very difficult to see. They are completely different from the temporary universal form shown to Arjuna. The four-handed form of Narayana and the two-handed form of Krishna are eternal and transcendental, whereas the universal form exhibited to Arjuna is temporary. The words Tvad anyena na drishta purvam, text 47, state that before Arjuna, no one had seen the universal form. Also, this suggests that amongst the devotees, there was no necessity of showing it. That form was exhibited by Krishna at the request of Arjuna, so that in the future, when one represents himself as an incarnation of God, people can ask him to see his universal form. The word na, used repeatedly in the previous verse, indicates that one should not be very much proud of such credentials as an academic education in Vedic literature. One must take to devotional service of Krishna. Only then can one attempt to write commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. Krishna changes from the universal form to the four-handed form of Narayana and then to his own natural form of two hands. This indicates that the four-handed forms and other forms mentioned in Vedic literature are all emanations of the original two-handed Krishna. He is the origin of all emanations. Krishna is distinct even from these forms, what to speak of the impersonal conception. As far as the four-handed forms of Krishna are concerned, it is stated clearly that even the most identical four-handed form of Krishna, which is known as Mahavishnu, who is lying in the cosmic ocean and from whose breathing so many innumerable universes are passing out and entering, is also an expansion of the Supreme Lord. As stated in Brahma Samhita 5:48, Pyasyaika nisvasit kalam athavalambhya Jivanti loma vilaja jagadandanatha Vishnur mahan saiha yasya kala visesho Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The Mahavishnu, unto whom all the innumerable universes enter and from whom they come forth again simply by his breathing process, is the plenary expansion of Krishna. Therefore, I worship Govinda, Krishna, the cause of all causes. Therefore, one should conclusively worship the personal form of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has eternal bliss and knowledge. He is the source of all forms of Vishnu. He is the source of all forms of incarnation, and he is the original Supreme Personality as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. In the Vedic literature, Gopala Tapani Upanishad 1.1, the following statements appear. Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya Kalishtakarine Namo Vedanta Vedaya Gurave Buddhisakshine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Krishna, who has a transcendental form of bliss, eternity, and knowledge. I offer my respect to him because understanding him means understanding the Vedas and therefore the Supreme Spiritual Master. Then it is said, Krishno vai paramam daivatam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gopala Tapani Upanishad 1.3. Eko vasis sarvagaha Krishna idaya ekopi san bahudayo Bhabhati. That one Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he is worshipable. Although he is one, he is manifested in unlimited forms and expanded incarnations. The Brahma Samhita 5.1 says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna, who has a body of eternity, knowledge and bliss. He has no beginning, for he is the beginning of everything. He is the cause of all causes. In the Vishnu Purana 4.11.4 it is said, Yatra Vatirnam Krishnakhyam Param Brahma Harakriti. The Supreme Absolute Truth is a person. His name is Krishna, and he sometimes descends to this earth. Similarly, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find a description of all kinds of incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this list, the name of Krishna also appears. But then it is said that this Krishna is not an incarnation of God, but is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Ete chamsa khala pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Matta parataram nanyat. There is nothing superior to my form as a personality of Godhead Krishna. He also says elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, Aham adirhi devanam. I am the origin of all the demigods. And after understanding Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, Arjuna also confirms this in the following words. Param Brahma Parandhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. I now fully understand that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, and that you are the refuge of everything. Therefore, the universal form which Krishna showed to Arjuna is not the original form of God. The original is Krishna form. The universal form with its thousands and thousands of heads and hands is manifest just to draw the attention of those who have no love for God. It is not God's original form. The universal form is not attractive for pure devotees who are in love with the Lord in different transcendental loving relationships. The Supreme Godhead exchanges transcendental love in his original form of Krishna. Therefore, to Arjuna, who was so intimately related with Krishna in friendship, this form of the universal manifestation was not pleasing, rather it was fearful. Arjuna, who was a constant companion of Krishna's, must have had transcendental eyes. He was not an ordinary man. Therefore, he was not captivated by the universal form. This form may seem wonderful to persons who are involved in elevating themselves by fruitive activities. But to those persons who are engaged in devotional service, the two-handed form of Krishna is the most dear. So, thank you all for assembling here and giving me an opportunity to discuss Bhagavad Gita, and we hopefully all will get benefited out of this. So here the chapter is Bhagavad Gita is chapter 11, the universal form. So here Krishna has now, until now, he has shown the universal form to Arjuna upon his request, and after that Arjuna, when he saw this beautiful and very elaborate and also huge form of the Krishna in the form of this universal form, he was wonderstruck and he was even fearful. And then Arjuna requests him that although this form is beautiful and good, please show me your original form, because this form doesn't allow me to worship you or to serve you. So then Krishna comes to his and then he asks Krishna to show also his four-handed form, and then after that he also requests him to come back to his two-handed form. And here in this translation, so after this, Krishna, after coming back to his two-handed form, he is speaking to Arjuna and saying that to understand about me and especially about my form is very difficult, or only, and it is only possible by undivided devotional service. right? So that is the criteria. The criteria is that if an individual, all of us in one or the other form, directly or indirectly, are seeking for Krishna. We are seeking for Krishna's association so that we'll be happy, right? So different people have different perceptions of achieving that goal of being happy, right? One can completely depend on his mind and senses and then perform experiments and come to certain conclusion, or other person can read books, understand Sanskrit, read books, understand the technicalities, right? Or as Krishna explains in the earlier chapters, they can do Ashtanga yoga, they can do meditation, breathing exercises and all of that. But ultimately, Krishna is explaining in this verse that they have to perform devotional service, meaning that they have to perform activities that is pleasing to Krishna, right? Only then Krishna, out of his own free will reward him that darshan of him, right? Right. So there are different laws in this world which we live in, right? So in order to achieve anything, there is a process, and we have to apply our intelligence and creativity to make progress, right? To crack a particular entrance exam, or to get an admission into college, right? You need to follow the process of the administrative rules which are described by this college. And then what to speak of obtaining unending happiness and bliss, right? So even for that there is a process which Krishna is describing, and Srila Prabhupada is describing that there are rules and regulations and processes in place so that one can gradually make progress, right? So like coming to the temple, serving the deity, right? Taking darshan of the deity, and then performing arti, right? Taking instructions from a authorized teacher, right? Who himself is elevated in this path of Krishna consciousness, right? So taking guidance from him or her, and then in this way, right, we please the Guru, and then by pleasing the Guru, Krishna is also pleased, and then he would gradually reveal the form in a way that makes us happy and blissful, right? And also in this particular verse, Prabhupada is re-emphasizing the point that Krishna is the absolute truth, right? And there is no second to him, right? He is the source of everything, and all other forms of absolute truth or all other forms of energy, right? When we say in our day-to-day lives, in our day-to-day language, right? Specifically, he is quoting evidences from Lord Brahma, who composed this beautiful poem called the Brahma Samhita, right? And there are multiple Upanishads like Gopalathapani Upanishad and Srimad Bhagavatam, where through this evidence of the Shastra, and in Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna says that no one is superior to me, right? He says, Mattaha parataram nanyat, right? And even Arjuna also acknowledges that, right? So we have enough of evidence to show, which prove that Krishna is supreme, that absolute truth after whom all of us are longing to serve, right? Yeah. So even in we see that even in Bhagavatam, right? Even in multiple instances where we find that a student is obedient and submissive to the teacher, like Narada, and then they utilize their creativity and intelligence to follow the process, and then eventually they get darshan of Sri Krishna, right? For example, right, Vasudeva and Devaki, right? They have performed enormous amount of tapasya in their previous lives, and only after doing that, right, then the Lord appears before them, and then he asks he asks them, what do they want? So they say that we want to have a son like you. So then Krishna replies that they cannot be a perfect match like me, so I myself will appear as a son to you, right? So then when Krishna appears, right, before Vasudeva and Devaki, I just want to share these nice verses which are elaborated in Bhagavatam. So this is from 10th canto, where the chapter is the appearance of the Lord Sri Krishna, or birth of Sri Krishna. Adbhutam balakam ambuje kshanam jaturbujam shankagadadi udayudham srivatsa lakshmam galaso bikaustubham pitambaram sandra hadayo saubhagam. There is also another verse, continuation. Maharha Vaidurya Kirita Kundala Tvisha Pariksvakta Sahasra Kundalam Uddamachan Kanchi Angada Kanakadhibir Virochan Chamanam Vasudeva Aiksata. Vasudeva then saw the newborn child who had very wonderful lotus-like eyes, and who bore in his 4 hands the 4 weapons, Shankha, Chakra, Gada and Padma. On his chest was a mark of Srivatsa, and on his neck the brilliant Kaustuba gem. Dressed in yellow, his body blackish like a dense cloud, his scattered hair fully grown, and his helmet and earrings sparkling uncommonly with the valuable gem Vaidurya, the child decorated with a brilliant belt, armlets, bangles and other ornaments appeared very wonderful. Right. So similarly, there are also other stories, like the story of Dhruva Maharaj, where he was also trying to become a very noble king. He wanted to rule a big kingdom, right? At the young age of 5 itself, he had this desire, and so then when he approached Narada Muni in the forest, right? So Narada Muni, he guided him expertly, and Dhruva Maharaj was able to get the darshan of the Lord. And similarly, we also have so many instances which are mentioned in Bhagavatam. We have other example also of Maharaj Chitraketu, right? So even there, right, Chitraketu receives the process to serve Sankarshana, And by following the process mentioned by Narada Muni, he makes progress and he becomes successful. Right? So here is the verse. It says in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, chapter 16, text 29. Tata hati phaya ho bhir vidyayedam manogatihi jagama deva devasya sesasya haranantikam. Thereafter, within a very few days, by the influence of the mantra that Chitraketu had practiced, his mind became increasingly enlightened in spiritual progress, and he attained shelter at the lotus feet of Anantadeva. Mrimala Gauram Sthiti Vasam Spurat Hirita Keruya Katitrakankanam Prasanna Vaktraruna Lochanam Vritam Dadarsas Siddheshwara Mandala Prabhum. Upon reaching the shelter of Lord Sesha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chitraketu saw that he was as white as the white fibers of a lotus flower. He was dressed in bluish garments and adorned with a brilliantly glittering helmet, armlets, belt, and bangles. His face was smiling and his eyes were reddish. He was surrounded by such exalted persons like Sanat Kumara. Right? So, all of these are evidences, right, to support what Krishna is speaking here. Right? So, all of these evidences should inspire us or should clarify our doubts, if any, right, that there is a process to become pure, right, and then eventually one gradually gets spiritual progress and one becomes qualified to see the Lord, and the Lord, out of his free will and out of his love towards us, he gives darshan and he engages us in his service. Right? So others, many speculators, right, they are too much dependent on their own material faculties, and they give big lectures proving there is no God, or all of this is fiction, or so. But by reading Bhagavatam, and by personally, if you ask me, by specifically reading the verses describing the features of the Lord, right, it gives me lot of great faith that that here is the evidence where there is description of each and every feature of the Lord, right? So and so this gives me, or it helps me to have more faith in this process, that yes, there is God and he has form and he is decorated in such and such beautiful way, and there are also expressions in these verses, if one goes through Srimad Bhagavatam, where the person who is having this darshan of the Lord is in ecstasy, right? He is in complete bliss, which cannot be expressed in any words, right? He's so he's so happy, he's so blissful, that person is completely satisfied. Yes, I'm like completely satisfied now. And he doesn't need anything else. He or she doesn't need anything else. So yeah, so it gives me a lot of hope that although I'm struggling, right, but at least it gives us hope that okay, if we are patient, tolerant, and we do our due diligence up to our capacity, right, gradually Krishna will take care of us, and he will fulfill all our desires. Right? Yeah. So thank you. If you have any comments or questions, please.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. It's so nice to listen to this. It's chapter 11 is a very wonderful chapter. You very rightly explained everything. Prabhupada did marvelous job for this shloka. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Okay. All right then.